Hello, it is Sunday night, Monday morning. We're heading into Asian trading after a pretty dramatic weekend where the United States bombed Iran and President Trump declared that they completely obliterated the nuclear facilities, and it's starting to look like a complete dog and pony show. The Iranians were warned in advance, no real damage was done, only 6 planes were sent to, I think, 2 bombs each. And so everybody's kind of breathing a bit of a sigh of relief that it is not extending into something bigger. In crypto markets, which I'm going to look at in this video, Bitcoin particularly and ETH have pulled back to really interesting potential support levels. I'm going to start with a monthly chart here in spot Bitcoin. Let's go out to a monthly chart and talk about why this is a really interesting level. If we go all the way back to the beginning of Bitcoin, I think we're in a big wave 5, and quite often this wave 5, which started I think in November 2022, and I could be counting this wrong, but for now let's leave it at that. There's a mathematical relationship between wave 1 and wave 5, and so this it applies if we look at this wave 3 in the middle as well. This was 2.618 of wave 1, but if I measure from the beginning of time in Bitcoin to the first high we made in 2018 and projected from this low that we made in October 2022, these fib projections, you can see they're a bit messy, but they kind of work really well. So this 6.618 we went sideways at as a first target. We had a little bit of a pause here for a month, pull back at this 1.618 level. Likewise with this 2.618 level, it's a little bit messy in that we overshot it initially and then got above it and found support from this level. Likewise here at this 4.236 extension level, which came in at 100,000, basically 99,600. You can see on the monthly when we first hit it, it was a bit of resistance and we pull back. And then we did that thing where we washed through it. What we're looking for this, if we're going to keep going higher, is this now that we've gotten above it, instead of it being resistance and we just drop back underneath it. It becomes support if we're going to keep going higher. And if we do that, then our next kind of fib extension level, if you like, for Bitcoin is up here at 151,000. So that's how I'm looking at it. And if I look at it on a weekly, quite often you see this pattern at important levels. So the first time you come into a level, it'll be resistance and you'll do a pullback, and then you'll have another go at it and you'll wash through it. And then to have conquered the level, you need to get above it and then it be support. And this happens quite often. So this potentially is what we are looking for in Bitcoin, holding above. Let's put it this way, holding above this level would be very bullish. You can see at this previous level, we did very similar, we washed back and forward through it. But once it became support, we really kind of took off. And when I look at the correction that we've made, when we pull back into this level here on the daily, it looks a little bit like the ABC correction. Now I'm a little bit cautious because we haven't actually quite pull back and tagged like the daily 200 moving average. So I think that there is a little bit of a risk that there is a zone here. And the reason it's a bigger zone is if I measure from this high to this low, the best, you can see this is a pretty interesting equal measured move right here as well. So what would be the level, or what would we need to get back above to confirm that this is a 3-wave correction and we've completed it, and we're not actually going to dip a little bit lower and tag this 200-day moving average? If we did dip a little bit lower and tag this 200-day moving average, and some kind of threat to close the Straits of Hormuz or any kind of escalation might do that. But it just sounds to me like the initial attack on the 13th of June from Israel didn't succeed the way that they hoped it would. And then it felt like, all of those aircraft and everything were moved in position very quickly. And it looked like a little bit of a cover-up, if you like. I'm starting to think that half of what we pretty much everything that we hear and only half of what we see is true, and it's all designed to kind of trick us. And if that's the case, then things may be, you know, we may not be on the edge of nuclear oblivion, and hopefully the market will realise that. Certainly, you know, when we look at what happened to the oil price since the 13th of June, you know, the markets or the stock indexes, you know, they are really not pricing in this turning into something bigger. And I'm thinking that this may have been a little bit of a shakeout. So this support zone for me here in Bitcoin between 96 and 99 is support. And when I put these equal measured moves on, if we get above this 103,600 level, which is where this level was, this leg was 61.8 of this for me would confirm that we are on our high, on our way or higher again. And if we draw this as a flag with parallel channels like this, if we trade back above 103,600, the first target is going to be the top of this channel, if you like, and then a breakout from here would say we've got a very nice move, and then a three-wave correction, and the next leg higher is underway, and obviously new highs above 110 for me gives us a bigger target of 151,000 next in Bitcoin before we see a bigger correction. So pretty interesting support level to bounce from. Now the thing is with Bitcoin, every now and then, you know, it'll prove me wrong and it'll do a really sharp V bottom, as in we'll just rip and it won't come back, in which case you just have to buy pullbacks. But very often in Bitcoin, it double taps a low, or it retests a low, or you get a slightly lower low, which in this case wouldn't be weird. You know, if we got a slightly lower low here and tag that 200 moving average, I still think in this zone it's a really interesting buy. So I'm not piling in straight away in Bitcoin, but it's a really good level for me to watch. Let's take a look at ETH, because ETH is doing a really interesting pattern as well. Now I've said this before, this is a weekly chart of Ethereum, and here we are with all of our bunched up moving averages on the weekly going sideways, because we really have for 6 weeks gone sideways in ETH. Excuse me. So if I measure from this high to low though, we reversed at a 50% level. When you do that 50% thing, mean reverting markets tend to keep mean reverting, which would mean that the key support on a pullback would be 50%, which is where we're bouncing from. If we bounce from here and we do this kind of coiling up thing where 50%, 50% and so on is what the pattern that we make until we break out of those 50% retraces. So we're bouncing from 50% here. I think on the upside, we should see 2,497, basically 2,500, and the middle then of these bunched up weekly moving averages. And if we look at this on the daily, we're just kind of finding, this is some support here at the lows, and this is looking really neat for a bounce to at least 50% of this drop. Now, because it's been making very clear in ETH, three wave moves. So we've got 3 waves here, 3 waves down, 3 waves up, 3 waves down. I would expect this move to be in 3 waves as well. So 50% up, 50% back, and then likely another high leg higher back to the top of this range in ETH if everything holds up. And you know, I'm not wrong about this war escalating. I think if it just stays to Iran and Israel taking pot shots at each other, really it shouldn't crash crypto, you know, and as long as the US stays out of it, hopefully the market will not have a really ugly move. We may be able to start breathing a bit of a sigh of relief. So a really interesting level to watch for a reversal. For me, I'm always looking at these lower time frame moving averages to flip, and it looks to me like we are doing it in these. But again, just be careful, because it's very typical in crypto to do deep retraces or double bottoms or that false breakdown. And something Monday morning could trigger that. We really don't know how the broader market is going to react at the open tomorrow, or, you know, just one more kind of scare, if you like. One of the better performing little altcoins here has also been Useless. We had fib extension targets measured from the high mid-May to the low that we made at the beginning of June in this one. This is a daily chart, and we hit this 2.618 fib target at 0.116 very nicely. Reversal there back to this previous swing low, and this is another one that has made a pretty interesting three-wave move here, and we're bouncing from the previous swing low. Really, this is quite bullish. It sets us up for a retest of the highs, and then if we make a topping pattern here, like if we were going to make a head and shoulders, I would expect us to get up here around 0.11, something like that, or a retest of the highs. But buy pullbacks, because if we hold above 0.116, the next upside target becomes 0.185, and that's what I'm looking for at this one. And this certainly, this price action doesn't suggest top yet or a reversal. Not saying it can't turn into one, but people are still seem to be buying strength in this market, or buying the outperformers, and Useless is definitely one of those. So that's where I'm seeing where we are tonight at the open. I am going to make another video about oil and FX as we see how we hold up overnight in oil prices. But again, pretty key decision level, if you like, at oil. So I'll do that separately. And yeah, it looks like the TACE trade may be on.